Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. Welcome. So I want to talk for just a moment about these town hall meetings, about Scenius itself, because Scenius is a verb. It's not a noun. It's a happening itself. So there was a lot of great coverage, I think, in both the Scene and the Weekly about what Scenius actually really is. Brian Eno. My name is Brandy Redinger. I am founder of the Muse project.
Excuse me, can you hear her?
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay, so if you can't hear, just kind of thumbs up and I'll turn it up.
Turn it up.
Turn it up?
Yeah.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Awesome, okay.
Thank you.
So I'll start again. My name is Brandy Redinger, and I'm founder of the Muse Project. Our aim at the Muse Project is to become a leading edge platform for collaborative leadership in the community and to feature new values that are emerging in business and arts, education. And so not only do we feature these town hall meetings as a platform, but we as well offer public meditation every Wednesday night. And we have an evolutionary study program at Muse that you can take a look at on our website, museproject.org. So this is the last of a series of 4 town hall meetings where we're featuring local Scenius. And Scenius is a new word that was coined by musical savant Brian Eno in 2009. And whereas Scenius is not a new phenomena, our awareness of it is new. And so we're really talking about when a culture or a community has embedded genius within it. We're talking, the implication of Scenius allows us to put our attention on the context that genius arises in culture. And so you could say it's a field or ecology that engenders the birth of genius and birth of the new. And there's some qualities to Scenius itself, this ecology that genius is born out of, that speak towards a bias in a culture towards what could happen, what is possible, what is creative, and what is new. And so, I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out that Scenius itself is not a new phenomena, right? That genius has probably always arisen in individuals in an environment that engendered. There's a lot of genius that probably never got noticed, right? All throughout history. But Brian Eno started looking at that there's this basic environment that it arises out of. So we, Muse Project, approached our speakers, recognizing them as generating local genius in our community. And so what we want to do tonight in investigating this, because Scenius is actually a verb, it's not a noun, it's a happening. It's a happening itself, and it has a quality of engagement. A community or culture that has Scenius is a very engaged culture and a very biased culture toward what could happen and what can arise purely out of encouraged creativity and engagement. So tonight is, in a sense, a great experiment in Scenius. So we're going to save a certain amount of time after all the speakers speak to allow a type of community engagement that is a progressive dialogue where we all are engaged together, first of all just listening, creating a field of listening that is a receptive field to what is happening, but in a culture that actually is endowed with Scenius, it's important to view oneself as part of what is encouraged and part of what is happening. So you would want to engage questions with the speakers, engage dialogue in a way that moves the perspective more creatively, bigger, deeper. And that's an engagement between all of us. So I guess we can just move forward now with our speakers. And but I do want to give thanks to the amount of volunteer work that really went into this town hall meeting. Have an amazing team at Muse that has put tremendous amount of hours and creativity into this. So I'd like to thank all our volunteers. And I'd as well like to thank Go Girl Friday for putting the image behind the concept with our flyer. And I'd like to thank the Esther Simplot complex itself. Tom Tompkins has been wonderful to work with, and thank Robert for inviting us into his home. We have had these town hall meetings prior in my yoga studio at Muse, and we just thought this one warranted a bigger venue. So I want to introduce Joe, because he's not known in our community except for by a few individuals. And Joe's from Boston. He's a master teacher of conductors, musicians, performers, speakers all over the world. He has, I would say, a great encouragement, I think, for all of us, having a lifetime of 92 years of creativity.
I'll be 93 in 3 months.
93 in 3 months, so.
All right, okay.
And I remember when I talked to Joe on the phone and asked him to speak, he goes, you know, Brandy, I am so excited about my work. If I ever retire, I'm not quite sure what I'll do, but I'm so excited because I'm exploring this new edge of teaching. And I thought, whoa, you know, so much for retirement. So we're really blessed to have Joe with us. He flew in from Boston and is doing work in the community. And through Joe, I met Robert Franz. I do not need to introduce Robert, and I want to thank you, Robert, for inviting us here. This is awesome. Thank you very much. And then I'm really proud to introduce Faisal Shah. And I heard a quote once that from John Francis Phipps that says, artists are not special people. Every person is a special kind of artist. And when I asked Faisal if he would speak, he said, but I'm not an artist. And so what would I say? And the truth is, he's created tremendous possibility in technology and in business. He's a creative entrepreneur and very vital to this perspective of creative placemaking, what it takes in a community to have growth economies. And as well, I'm really, really pleased to introduce Lori Chandro, and she is co-founder and a lot of the heart behind Tree Fort Music Festival, which has put Boise on the map and the bohemian culture of Boise on the map. So thank you for coming.
Amen.
Well, I don't quite know what I'm going to say. I'm going to take a big risk. I teach a lot about taking risks, so I've got to kind of do what I teach, right? I've spent the last week thinking about this talk. I think what Brandy did was a great overture to the orchestra or quartet we're doing, or quintet that we have here today. Creativity, that's huge. As I say it, I feel the vibration going through creativity. What is creativity? I believe, no, I'm going to say I know, that within each one of us there's a seed of great possibility, of huge potential. Of huge creativity. Most of us don't really know it deeply enough, what it can do. I see heads going like that. But if we can recognize that seed and allow it to burst forth and flourish and grow and expand and vibrate outward, 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 it's extraordinary. That seed embodies the universal aspect of all of us. Let's see, lots of heads saying yes to that. That seed is what connects all of us to each other and to everything. That sounds pretty good, I think, what I just said. It interconnects and interconnects each one to all of us. Let me tell you a little story. A year ago last December, can you hear me?
Yeah.
A year ago last December, I went down to Norfolk, Virginia. One of my students there, a young conductor, who conducts the orchestra at the School for the Arts down there. Lovely school. Dancers, painters, musicians. And he got a foundation grant to come up to Boston for 3 sessions to work with me. Then he brought me down to Norfolk for several days. I happened to see this guy here conducting the Messiah that weekend. And I worked with the orchestra for some hours. I was a dancer for 25 years in New York, modern dancer, with one of the great companies. And I always start with the body, because the body is the envelope of our past, our present, and our future. And I work with the orchestra. We worked a lot about tension, because tension blocks all kinds of stuff. Tension is a monster, as we all know. And we worked from time to time, from place to place. And finally, after several hours was over, I thought we were not finished. We'd come to a very, very good place. I said, "How do you feel now?" And on my left, from the first violin section, young Chris raised his hand and he said, "I feel as if I'm no longer by myself, I'm part of the whole orchestra." Isn't that gorgeous? I said, my wonderful spiritual teacher talks about going from I to we. And that's so simple and profound for me and for all of us. Going from I to we. How much does the community here in Boise go from I to we? I had a wonderful talk with Faisal yesterday, big long talk. And you'll hear from him about whether or not he thinks that there's enough going from I to we in this community. Interesting. So what does we mean? What does we mean? That seed, when it ripens, and as I said, it contains this universal energy. That's extraordinarily regenerative. There's something about that timeless, no place, in a way, no time either. Timeless energy. I've worked with artists all my life. I start my journey going to my high school days when I grew up in Detroit, to Detroit City Symphony Hall every week to hear the great ones come and perform. Bartok and his wife Ditya come to do a joint piano concert. Rachmaninoff coming to play. Tall, lean Rachmaninoff with his bony, marvelous hands playing his music, and so forth and so on. And as I thought back last week about what I was going to say here in my own life, I think I discovered there my seed, I'm going to say a big word, my eternal seed. And then as I began to choreograph, I got my first dance classes at college. I began to choreograph my first works. that seed became more known to me. I didn't think about that in those days. I'm thinking back now, remembering where I was, what happened to me. And then when I went to New York for 25 years performing, teaching, being in Broadway musicals when I needed money, and then teaching actors for 25 years at Boise University. I look back, and that was all about who we really are. Getting rid of all the stuff. You all know what I mean. And basically I discovered it's basically about ego. We all know what ego means, that hideous monster. It's about ego. Once you get rid of the ego, you can't get rid of it. Throw it in the corner. Put it in a box. Put the key, lock up the key and throw the box away. And then you begin to feel who you really are. And then you can go from I to we. You can grow wings on your back and say, boy, this feels free. Screw the ego. Get rid of it. So, I've been reflecting back about this, how this universal energy moves through the arts. Last week I was remembering going to Russia for the second time, I guess, to St. Petersburg and walking into the Hermitage. Anyone here been to the Hermitage Museum? Okay. To a room full of Rembrandts. Astonishing. Genius. You were talking about genius before. Scenius. I think we're all geniuses anyway, really, in our own way. So what? The Rembrandts are there. We all have the capacity to be our own great fulfilled desires and so forth. And then I thought back about 10 years ago when I went to the New York City Ballet to see one of the great ballets, Apollo, the great god, music by Igor Stravinsky, choreographed by Balanchine. I'm still remembering this 10 years later. The curtain goes up, and there Peter Bowl is standing with his lyre, Apollo's lyre. And from Peter Bowl, this wave of energy came. This resonance came, and you knew that he was vibrating from his inner to his outer, this extraordinarily universal energy. And the whole valley was like that. I'm still remembering this 10 years later. Peter Bowl, incidentally, is now director of the Pacific Northwest Ballet in Seattle. I was talking about vibrating. I teach from time to time and talk about the law of resonance. The law of resonance. What is that? Resonare, the Latin word for resonance, to vibrate. We all know that everything is energy. Subatomic energy, this is energy, your energy. There's a spectrum of energy going from density to light, from low vibration to high vibration. Anger's dense, cynicism dense, doubt dense, illness, I've had a lot the last couple of years, dense. And then you start to vibrate upwards, less dense, more light-filled, more light, higher. Knowing that life is not just good, but it's ecstatic in its essence. With all the bumps we go through, life is, I feel, ecstatic. And all the good things that one recognizes. Love, not me personal love, but really more universal love. And all good things. And the reason why I'm bringing it up here today is that, and I've known in my own life, that if you can come to a place of great optimism and know beyond your mind that life is pretty damn good, that doorways will open up for you. If you're dense, forget about it. But if you resonate at a higher level, nature will support what you want. Not from a selfish way, but in a larger sense, So, I'm talking from moment to moment here. I think that's basically what I have to say. Okay, 12 minutes. I invite you to do questions afterwards, because that's when I take off.
So, my name is Robert Franz. I'm the music director of the Boise Philharmonic, and I started studying with Joe about 15 or 16 years ago. But there was stuff that went on before that, and so I want to tell you a little bit about that and about the creative process for me as I've gone through that struggle. So there was a study in the 1980s to recalibrate MRI scanners in Dusseldorf, Germany. And they were putting one person in after the other. They were putting musicians and non-musicians. I don't quite know how they decided to do that, but that's what they did. And what they discovered was that musicians had a 10 to 15% larger corpus callosum than non-musicians. It was pretty exciting for us music nerds, because we felt like music jocks all of a sudden, because we had these enormous corpus callosum somewhere in our body. We didn't really know where they were or what they did, but we were pretty impressed with ourselves. Turns out the corpus callosum are the fibers that wrap the nerves that go between your left brain and right brain. And because those are tougher in musicians and stronger, it enables that back and forth between the analytical and the creative. And it turns out, by the way, that if you're interested in your own corpus callosi, that the way to keep them strong is by continually learning, and the way to destroy them is to stop learning. And that basically is the tenet of those wraps. So what I've realized in my creative process is that it's an eternal struggle between right brain and left brain. Music is just about the most right-brained activity that you can imagine in many ways. But when you listen to an orchestra play and you see a musician perform, you're struck by the left brain quality of it, the creative quality of it. So how do those two things sort of interact with each other? I come from basically a non-musical family, and I say basically because my dad did know one song on the guitar. It's that song, I don't know if you've ever heard this song before. I'll sing as much as he knew, because this is how much I know of it, because I heard it a million times. Twang, 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 twang. Sonny, thank you for the do-do-do-do-do. You know songs on that? So I'm sure when you came in here this evening, you assumed that the background of the music director of the Boise Philharmonic was that song. But that's my history. So one day I showed up at third grade and Willa Loescher came by to change my life. She looked at me, she said, "Bobby, do you want to play an instrument in the orchestra?" And I said, "Yes, sure, Miss Loescher." She said, "What do you want to play?" And I said, "I don't know." She said, "Let me see your hands." So she held my hands up. She said, "These are the hands of a great cellist." What she meant was they were big enough to hold the cello, so I was not going to be playing the violin, but I didn't know that. So she taught me how to make a sound, and I went home and I made a sound. For 4 hours, I did nothing but make sound. I was completely encased in this world of sound that I had no idea of, but once I got there, I knew that's where I belonged. So I walked downstairs and I said to my parents, "I'm going to be a musician for the rest of my life." And they said, "That's very cute, Bobby." It turned out to be the absolute truth, and it hasn't changed since. I've always felt that from that moment on, I've always imagined on the inside, when I remember sitting in growing up in Kingston, New York, on the edge of my bed, I'd be listening to the Dvorak Cello Concerto. The first record I ever got, a record, by the way, is that big black round thing. And so we go round and round. I'd listen to Dvorak Cello Concerto, Mislav Rostropovich playing, and I'd look out the window and I'd stare at this birch tree that was outside my window. And I would imagine what it would be like to sit there in the center of the stage and perform for thousands of people. And it wasn't like I had hoped it. I just had a sense of it. It was just what I knew. And I always sensed this, that I was like an onion, that I always felt like I was a musician on the inside, and I had these layers on the outside that I had to peel off to become. I never, ever, ever once felt like I wanted to learn to become an artist. I always felt like there was one inside and I needed to get to it. When I was 11, we moved to North Carolina, and I switched to oboe, which I hated. It's a very, very, very difficult and ugly instrument in its first couple of years of existence. If you've never heard one at the beginning, it sounds sort of like if you take your hand and put it around the neck of a duck and you squeeze strongly. So I did that for a while until it stopped sounding like the duck and it started to sound like Peter and the Wolf. And then I went to school, to the North Carolina School of the Arts, to do a bachelor's degree in oboe, where a whole new world was open to me. I hardly ever studied privately in high school and in middle school. Not in middle school at all. So in high school, just a little bit. So it was all what I was searching for. It was that process for me. So I got into college and I decided in my junior year that I would take a conducting course because I wanted to know what it was like to be on the podium. I thought if I'm going to be a great oboist, I must know what it's like to be on the other side so that I can respond. So I stood up the first day and I conducted the opening of Beethoven's Second Symphony. Ta-dam, da-dee-da. And right at that moment, I thought, this is who I am. More than anything I'd ever done in my entire life, this was who I was on the inside. So I started studying. My right brain went nuts. I studied theory and history, and I studied viola, if you can imagine. And I did a master's degree in conducting. I had a voracious appetite for repertoire. I wanted to learn everything that there was to know. And then I graduated with no hope of getting a job, none, zip zilch, none. Because the deal is that to be a conductor, you have to have experience, and to get experience, you have to have a job. So I thought, well, I'll start an orchestra, how hard can it be? So I learned how to raise money, sell tickets, run the orchestra, and my left brain was in high gear. And so I approached music like that. Okay, I'm going to learn how this fits together, I'm going to make it happen, and I have a good ear, so I could just make it happen. And it worked really well for a while. And eventually I won my first job at the Louisville Orchestra as the associate conductor. And after about 6 or 8 months, my right arm seized up. I had 5 weeks of constant conducting, and I was, to put it mildly, I know Joe would describe it even broader than I do, I was a tad on the tense side. And so I had remembered a couple years prior going to a League of American Orchestras conference where we'd go and we'd study with a master teacher, but in the morning, every morning at 9 o'clock in the morning for 9 to 10, Joe would do a movement workshop with conductors. And I remembered this, and I thought, I wonder what else he does. I wonder if he does anything else. And at the time, Joe was teaching a couple of these week-long sessions for conductors in Boston. So I went, and I started working with Joe. And I don't need to say, after hearing him talk, that Joe changed my life. But he changed my life in the sense that I got a different perspective. I was hell-bent on the concept that I could make my career happen, that I could make it as an artist, that I could do it. And I had great upbringing. My parents said, you know what, Bobby, anything, by the way, they're the only people who call me Bobby anymore, just FYI. Just so we're clear. They didn't go to college. Their idea was, no matter what you want, you work hard enough, you can have it. It doesn't matter what it is, you can do it. There are no limits for you whatsoever. The only requirement is that you must work. There are no shortcuts in this world. So that's what I did. I got out of college and I worked. I had 7 jobs when I got out of college. And so I worked and I worked and I worked. But then I realized, I came to this huge understanding that being successful and being creative wasn't about making it happen, it was about allowing it to happen. And then all of a sudden I ran into an enormous new problem. Because you can't just allow it to happen. You must be prepared so that when it happens, you can take advantage of it. And all of a sudden, this fabulous left brain world that I was living in became a right brain world again because I had to study. And it's been that way for the last 20 years, and it's been the most amazing journey. But I tell you, and I promise you, that there's really only one answer to creativity, and that is hard, endless work. It never stops. Those who think that creativity is 90% inspiration, 10% work, have it exactly backwards. It's 98% work, 2% inspiration. So that when that moment comes, you are prepared to live it right to the nth degree and to go for it. I happen to exist in a world that is extraordinarily right-brained. It probably seems odd to you, but as musicians, we churn out repertoire every week. We don't memorize it. We're not like dancers or actors. who spend weeks learning their part and doing it until it's part of who they are. It's not like that. So it's easy to hide in the right brain. But as a conductor, my job is to open up that world to the musicians and to open it up for myself and to create that transfer. But it only works when there's all of that work leading up to it that enables you to be prepared for when that occurs. That's my view of creativity.
Let me just add one more thing here. When I start working with conductors for the first time, like this guy here 15 years ago, I don't think I asked that question 15 years ago, I say, if you are conducting timeless music, Mozart, Beethoven, Stravinsky, who do you have to be? Where do you have to be? That's an interesting question. If you're a vessel for timeless music, how do you allow that to come into being? There's so much push and pull these days. Tell me if I'm wrong. If you go to my website, you'll see the first page says less is more. You've heard that before. That's not true anymore. It's more is more. It's a lot of stuff going on. And we've been talking about that. I had 2 wonderful days with almost nonstop talking with Robert here. But it's an interesting thought to be aware of that less can produce so much more than doing a lot of it and selling it. Does that make sense at all? Say yes.
Yes.
I just wanted that kind of little moment here. And add one more thing that I was going to say before. That inner seed that I say we all have. When you open it up, you'll find a passion for moving forward to places you've never been before. You were kind of alluding to that. Always going to the unknown. Most people want to stay where they are. Tell me I'm wrong about that. It's uncomfortable, but I'm going to stay in this little box here. And know that is like, it's not life. Going to the edge, jumping off and seeing what's there, that's probably the most thrilling thing we can be. Finding what is unknown. I've discovered, for me, that's the greatest place to be. Opening a huge portal and saying, what's about to happen? It takes lots of faith, lots of self-confidence. You have to build on that. And knowing you're not perfect. But just open and see, jump and see what happens. And it's going to be great. Think of me when that happens. Okay, I just had to add that.
It's my turn. If I can be as articulate as Joe is and look as good as he does at 93, that's my new wish. And you know, when I first was putting this together, I had I had like 3 pages of things I wanted to say. And then I talked to Joe yesterday, and I realized that this is what I want to say. I love to start and build companies. That's what I love to do. At the end of the day, you know, I don't have a paintbrush and I probably don't have that. But what I love to do is put stuff together, to look at things and figure out how I can do that better. How I can make it so that people will find it to be really interesting or would really like it. That they will actually buy this thing and use it and really think, wow, what a great product, or what great technology, right? This guy did something really wonderful. It's my form of expression. It's what I do. And it's what I've wanted to do since I was a child. ever since I was a kid, I had a paper route. I sold candy. I did whatever I could where I was selling something or was involved with people, and I always wanted to have that feeling of ownership of something. And the way I look at it is that this is not about fame. This is not about power. It's none of that. It's all about accomplishment. It's like one day you sit down and you think, oh my goodness, look what I've done. Isn't this incredible? People are using it. I came up with a name, and people are actually saying the name. Wow. I didn't even know that name was that great. And a lot of you right now are thinking, well, he probably needs therapy. And maybe I do. But at the end of the day, it's something that's very addictive to me. And I think that, and more importantly, I think that when you're successful, it locks into your brain that this is something that you can do, and it makes you more addictive to the process. So, how did it all happen? Again, I was, a child, and I really loved doing this, and I wanted to nourish this passion of starting companies. So I went to business school and got my business degree, thinking, okay, this is really wonderful. I came out and became a salesman and started learning how to sell. And then I did something which was a little different, if you will. I decided to go to law school. And if that's not a creativity killjoy, I don't know. No offense to any lawyers here, but law school doesn't really stimulate your creative juices. It really doesn't. It's a whole different world that you go down, and I loved it. I actually was a lawyer for 10 years and ended up becoming a partner at a big firm. And decided, maybe this is what I want to do. But deep inside of me, I still had that burning desire to start my own company. So when my college roommate called me up and said, hey, I have this company that's got some issues. I really would love you to come and help us out in Boise, Idaho. I said, great, that's what I want to do. I want to come with you guys and be in your company. And where's Boise? So he said, don't worry about that. We'll figure it out. So I came to Boise, Idaho, and then I handled this one company for him, and then decided that, okay, this was my opportunity. I wasn't going to go back to a law firm. I wanted to do my own thing. So one day, and it's kind of going to what probably everybody here has been talking about, and that is keeping your mind open. If this is what you really want to do, if this is what you want to do, you got to keep your mind open, because it's closing it up is where it's the problem, right? People say I want to do this, I want to do that, but they're not keeping their mind open to opportunity. So my mind was looking for it. I was yearning for it. So I walked into a seminar where an attorney had gotten up and said, look, we are having problems on the internet. We're just having all kinds of problems. And one of the biggest problems is that we're trying to, our clients are trying to figure out who is using their trademarks and their trade names and their product names and all this stuff in websites, but we can't figure out, how to do it. And I thought, I can figure out how to do it. I don't know how, but I'll have to go figure out how to do it. So I came back to the office and decided that, okay, this is what I want to do. There was one slight problem, or maybe two. I had no business experience. I had no technology experience. I didn't know very much about intellectual property at the time. And now I was going down the road trying to get to know, trying to figure out how to put this company together. And that leads me to one point, and that is that people say, well, you got to do what you're passionate about. Well, yeah, you have to do what you're passionate about, but you got to remember something. You are passionate about something that you know. How can you be passionate about something you don't know? Right? So a lot of people say, yeah, I'm really passionate about driving cars really fast, but They've never done that. Or, whatever it is that they're talking about. The bottom line is, if you like something, well, then you should pursue that. But remember that your passion will happen on this side. It doesn't happen at the beginning. Suddenly, when you know something so much and you're so immersed in it, you will become passionate. It will be something that you're going to be very passionate about. So I immerse myself in this and try to get to know it as much as possible. And I want to show you guys something. I actually put this together. But the first thing you have to do, I didn't know how to do this. I had to create a product, right? Well, how do you create a product? I didn't know, but I knew I had to draw something up. Or how do you create a website? At the time, it was 1999, so I didn't really know how to do that. So I took out my little pencil, and this is my first website. It's really kind of rudimentary, and I had a little thing over here that was kind of going in and out, and it was, but I put pen to paper, and that's what I wanted to do. And then I said, well, I got to come up with a product. Okay. Well, here's my product. I don't even know what that looks like. I don't even know what that is at this point. But the bottom line is, and the reason I'm showing this to you, and I think it's really important for you to understand this, is that you have to commit yourself to something. You have to say, I'm going to do it. You just can't go, I could have gone to that seminar, and I could have said, you know what? Great. I want to start a company. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to think about it. And I'll talk to some people. Oh, we'll go get a drink. We'll figure it out later on. That's not what I did. I didn't know anything about this. But I came back and I started committing myself to the endeavor. I started at this point, as rudimentary as it is, this is where it all began. And I think that is really, really important. The other thing that I think that you guys should all understand is exactly what Joe was talking about, and that is that you have to take a risk. You have to take a risk. I was a partner at a major law firm in Los Angeles. I don't know, 1,000 lawyers. And I said, I'm going to give it up. I'm going to give it up. And I'm going to go to Boise, Idaho. And I'm going to do something, and I'm going to put it all out there, and hopefully my dreams will be realized. And that's what it's all about. By doing that, by reinventing myself, I kickstarted my creative process. Suddenly, the world was my oyster. I could do anything I wanted. But before that, I felt constrained. I felt stifled, right? Because I didn't have the ability to really showcase what I could do. And that leads me to a little bit about. Let me finish that out. I started one company which was Mark Monitor. Mark Monitor started in 1999, and it was my form of expression. It sold last year in one of the largest technology acquisitions in Idaho history. It went from 2 people, just me and somebody else, to it's got over 400 people. And that's the kind of stuff that you can do. That's the kind of stuff that we can do here, right? The things that if we get enough people, if we train enough people, and that's what I want to get to, is that I think in this city we have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of people who are independent, who love to make stuff and are creative, and it's wonderful. There's only one problem though. The problem is that because we have so many entrepreneurs, I'll start something. And then Brandy, will say, you know what? I can do that better. I'm going to start my other company, and it's going to be called, the best tech company. So instead of if all of us kind of collaborating, we start different things, and we are duplicating effort. I think the first thing we have to do.
It's not going from I to we.
Right. It's not going from I to we. We should be thinking about each other. We should be thinking about collaboration. We should be coming together. We should try to do stuff together. If we do stuff together, we'll be much more powerful. The other thing that we need to do is, for those people like us that have some experience behind us, we can help other people, and we can help the younger set. We can help anyone and train them to start companies, because that's what we know how to do. That's what I know how to do. So I started or I helped start a program here in Boise called Be Launched, and that's part of the Boise Young Professionals. It's a great program where we bring mentors and we then bring young professionals and match them to mentors, and then we compete against one another. And we were able to get last year $55,000 that they are able to access for those top 2 companies that actually get chosen to be funded. Well, that's a big deal. That's the kind of stuff that you need. Let's train people. Let's start getting them to understand and take away one thing, and take away the fear of starting a company, because that's really what you have. You have this fear that you don't know what to do, you don't know how to start something, so I'm not going to do it. If we take that away from them and we give them all the services and all the resources, now we're going to start having companies. And the other thing that I think that we don't do, and I'm glad Ben Quintana is here, who's with the City Council. I'm looking at you now, is to celebrate our successes. And sometimes I think that, we do great things here, but it just goes away with a little more than a whimper. Yet I hear from, in Silicon Valley, all the wonderful things that they're doing. But think about how great of a community we really have here. And think about all the great things that are coming out of this community. Why can't we be celebrating that stuff and shouting it from the rooftops as well? That's what we should be doing. Every single time something happens here, we should be out there saying, look what a great community. We'll get more people like that coming here, and everybody is going to realize that we have as good a people as anyone else in the country. And I think that's what it's all about. And you're going to hear from Lori. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's happening here that we should be celebrating all across the country. So it's what Joe said. You go. I can come in here and I can tell you about myself. But at the end of the day, it wasn't just me that was able to do stuff, especially my company. It was a team of people. And if you want a technology revolution and you want a well, you need to get the whole community involved and everybody moving lockstep together and doing something together. All right.